Hello and welcome to a different type of video, and hopefully the first video in a series on what it means to be a freelancer and the lessons that have been learned along the way. This video is going to be the kind of first step of that, and I'm kind of want to talk about professionalism and professional grade equipment and what you require and the perception of such means. Now, what I'm going to say here could be seen as a little bit controversial, a little bit subjective, and by all means, I'm not going to dismiss any application or tool. It's just what I've learned, and from the standpoint of starting with no money. So, how do you become a freelancer? How do you tout your services? How do you create things when you've got nothing? And I'm going to kind of talk about this from personal experiences and the lessons I learned along that way. So back in 2014, I set up Intermedia, so Interactive Augmented Reality Media, which has now become Creative Catalyst or Catalyst Creative, however you want to put that. And basically, it was set up to create bespoke interactive augmented reality experiences for events and clients using basic design tools and Unity and some C++. Now, that'll be fine. You think it's not actually that complicated to do, it's quite easy to do. I had many business meetings with many corporations, I had offers of grants, I had support systems being offered to me, loans, etc. You know, the whole shebang. It's very easy actually to kind of create connections when you make sure that you go to networking events, for example. And I was, at one period of time, attending one almost every week. I was actually doing talks at such events. I was running workshops at some of these events. It was like the heyday, the early start. It was the greatest start you could get, kind of thing. I was lucky in that regard. However, two things held me back, and the biggest thing being equipment and budget. Because although I could have easily took on a loan or have a grant, when you're starting off as freelance and you've got no money and no savings, it's a huge risk. I was at the time sofa surfing, for example, so I actually had nowhere to live. I couldn't even afford food, really. So yeah, here I was meeting businesses that are turning over thousands and if not hundreds of thousands a year, and then there's me with like a £5 a week to basically live on. So how did I kind of actually, make things? Well, the way I made things is I managed to, I had some old stuff. I actually won an iPad from a pitching competition. I came third place, so I wasn't like the winner. I was like third place, so I got an iPad. And I took that iPad and I had to sell it. Simple as. I had to sell it, use some of that money to buy myself some food, and what money was left over, I basically bought a second-hand laptop. And the second-hand laptop was fine, it worked, it was slow as anything, but it worked. Until my partner decided to accidentally step on it, and it had a big crack from then on. So I was going to these business events, networking events, touting my work, making applications on this broken £100 laptop with a crack in it. They didn't see the crack, I never showed them that. And I was making, filters. I made my first prototype for an AR trail in the city where I live was made on that laptop. And it worked very well, it was fine. But yeah, it was not ideal. And what I want to say is equip the perception that you need to have the greatest in kit and the greatest, you've got to have this big budget and you've got to spend all this money to be able to create something amazing. It's absolute rubbish. You can make amazing things with secondhand or, from nothing, essentially. And the biggest kind of proving point to this would be my opinion on professional grade cameras and software. Now I'm going to kind of split this into two parts in that regard. First off, I'm going to talk about cameras and equipment because that's what I've already kind of led into. So there, people think you need to have a 4K camera to be able to make a film. You need to be able to have specialist microphones. You need to have all this massive kit. No, all you need is a phone. It doesn't even need to be the best phone. It just needs to be a phone that's got a camera on it or can record a video. And one of the biggest things I want to get across is it's not about what equipment you use. It's about the creativity that sells you and your freelance journey, your business, your idea, your concept. That we can get hung up on this idea that you've got to buy stuff to make stuff, and it's a consumerist fallacy. You can make so much with nothing. I have dug through bins to make things in the past. It's nothing wrong with it. It's valid. And then here's me going to these corporate business events, doing presentations and showing off my work, and it's made on nothing. Essentially, it's made on like a shoestring, and nobody could tell. Nobody ever picked me up on it. Nobody ever questioned it. I got actual bids and made applications in that process, so I actually got paid for my work using stuff that cost me less than 100 to 200 quid in total. And yeah, that was the kind of biggest thing I learned from that. And it's about how you as a person create and how you sell yourself, not about what you bought to sell, if that makes sense. And sort of cycling back around that, when we've talked about equipment, the next thing we want to talk about is software, and how this is a biggest contention point for me. I actually, equipment-wise, I can kind of rationalise sometimes having to spend more money on certain things because certain things you just can't do. You can do, but it takes 3 times longer. And when you're doing freelance business or running a business, time is very much money. So you do very much have to make things quick to try and get things to pay off the time, especially in the initial stages. You can't take on big projects when you're on your own to begin with, for example. I mean, I'm still running this channel on my own and I can't take on huge projects still. Doesn't mean I can't look into it, and I wouldn't want to bring people in. In fact, I really am currently actively looking at doing that. But it's just harder. And so you just got to be realistic in that. Don't always under promise, over deliver. Simple fact. Under promise, over deliver. Don't say you can do something that you can't do. And quite often, if you've got good interpersonal skills, you can actually convince your client quite often to, swing around to your way of thinking. You say, these are the benefits for yourself if you do it this way, compared to spending 3 to 4 times more, and it probably taking 3 to 4 times longer. At the end of the day, does the end product meet the end requirement, which is often, what is the audience? Do they need it to be? Do they need to know that it's like all bells and whistles, or does it just need to look good, or does it need to work? That's the kind of balance that I've had to achieve quite often. So sometimes I've had things that everything I've made, I've always had this idea of quality, and I can be a quick perfectionist, which is a big problem, and because it just eats your time up, nothing gets done. But you kind of have to sort of knock yourself back a little bit on that. You have to go like, would I, as end user or end audience, accept this or be happy with this? And is it fairly priced to the client? Is the client happy with it? Would the end user be happy with it? That's all that matters. Whether you're happy with it is less important. And that sounds weird to say, but it kind of is. It's down to client, end user, you, your ego, your personality, your quality standards don't always have to be in line to either of those. That's, again, my experiences, and that might be wrong on that. It very much, if you've got any opposing queries on that, just pop me in a comment down below. I'll be happy to readdress this in a further video in the future. But yeah, so when we're talking about this sort of like quality, this is where the sort of software thing creeps in. And the reason I'm saying this is I'm talking about this as if you're creating digital content or media content, for really. So Adobe. I have to use Adobe to create my videos, to edit my work, to do nearly everything. I probably log into Adobe or access an Adobe application probably about 3 to 4 times a day, every day. And I hate it. I hate the fact that you have to pay 65 quid, or I don't know, I'll put on screen how much it is now. It's gone up a lot anyway, for the creative suite. And you kind of need the entire suite. There's no point having a photography bundle unless you're all doing just photography, which I find very good. But as a freelancer, somebody starting off, as somebody who is a independent, it's not possible. It's not realistic. It's ridiculous. It's like getting your kind of feet knocked away from underneath you while you're standing up before you've even had a chance to walk. And that is what this professional grade software kind of does. And I'm using the professional quotations because the amount of time I've actually seen companies or businesses use Adobe Suite, so Photoshop, After Effects, Premiere, etc., and create utter garbage. You don't have to use... Just because the industry or the corporations or the world says everything must be done by Photoshop if you're doing this, photo editing, everything to do with video editing must be done on Premiere Pro or Avid or something of that similar ilk. Why? What advantages do those actually give you? The biggest advantage they give you probably is simplicity, but that doesn't equate to quality. I can make something in Photoshop probably 4 to 5 times faster than I can in alternatives. But I'm also paying 4 to 5 times more, if not, well, monthly compared to off-the-shelf of alternatives. I am a huge advocate for freeware, for alternative software, for software where you're not paying a subscription, where you just buy the thing, you've got the thing, and as you sign off as a freelancer, that's all you can do. You buy what you can afford and you do with what you can. Adobe subscriptions are prohibitive if you're starting off as a freelancer, unless you've got a significant investment to begin with or work already lined up. Because the chances of you getting work every week or every month to pay that cost and the cost of living, the bills, your time, not guaranteed. Again, depending on what field or industry you're looking to go into with your freelance ideas. So when I started off, I had when I was a student, I'll go back in further. When I was a student, I made do with Paint Pro by Coral or Serif, I can't remember who now owns it. I haven't used it for a while, but I love it. I still love it. I would still go back to it in a flash. If finances this year keep going the way they're going in terms of rising costs, I might actually end my Adobe subscription. I might go back to Paint Pro. I might go to something like GIMP. I've got no issue with them. I can do with those what I can do with Photoshop easily. It'll just take longer, but they're fully fledged in their own right. And I don't see, I don't mind that. I don't care if it takes me longer, if it doesn't hit my wallet and I can afford to eat. That's the point you have to get to as a freelancer in a sense. Do I need it or do I want it? Premiere Pro, I've for a long time, even when I had access to Premiere Pro when I had CS5, that's how old it is, back when you could buy Adobe and that was it. You bought the Adobe, so you didn't have to pay some subscription. I had CS5, CS5, and I was still using Sony Vegas because it was about 50 quid, one off, and I could do everything that I can still do in Premiere in Vegas. I could do chroma keying, I could do track matting, I could do basic VFX. It was a little bit harder, so there's a little bit of a sketchy grain there. Sometimes I'd have to use an extra plugin for that, but I could do it. I did a lot of my early videos actually on Sony Vegas, not on this channel but on other channels I've had in the past, and the quality was the same, the workflow the same, the terminology is the same, the interface different, but it was fine and it served me well. And again, if I got rid of Adobe, I'd go back to something like that. I'd go probably back to Vegas or something similar to that. All I'm trying to say is don't be lured or convinced that you have to use industry or professional standard equipment or software to create great results. The idea or the concept is you and what you make, nothing to do with what you use or how you do it. As a freelancer, you've got to be realistic in your budgeting. You've got to think about how much have I got to start off with? Realistically, how much are my bills and how much is it going to cost for me to be able to live? What are the chances of me getting work? How many networking events can I attend and what costs are involved with those? Because networking is going to be the thing that gets you work if you're in the media or digital escape. It's, and that's it. That's basically my journey. That's basically my thoughts on starting off and the cost, the initial factors to consider. And I know this is a bit of a kind of like, oh, it's story time with Stephen kind of video, but I just wanted to sort of voice these opinions because I think there's, even I'm guilty of it sometimes. I make videos and I make videos on using Adobe software, and realistically, not everyone can afford it. I realistically couldn't afford it. I can only afford it because I get a discount. That's it. And that discount is still a lot. It's still a thing I have to consider and be careful of. So make what you can with what you've got. Don't be bought into this idea. It's the same kind of concept that we have with things like the iPhone. You must always upgrade your phone every year. Why? What's the point? You have to have the newest computer, the newest graphics card. No, you don't. You make do and you make with what you've got. And then once you get to a point where you can actually start to make profit, then you can reinvest. Then you can look at getting, this thing takes me 5 hours, but I'd like it to take me 1 hour. What do I need to make it to reduce that time? I need this. Now, how much is that going to cost me? Okay, so to be able to buy that, I need to work this many projects or do this amount of work, and eventually I'll be able to buy this. At that point, you can speed up your workflow and you grow, you build yourself up that way. You start with nothing. You get a little bit more, you get a little bit more, you get a little bit more, and eventually you get to a point where you're sustainable. That's it. That's the journey. And one lesson that you've got, I would encourage you to take that I've never took, and that I've made the biggest mistake I've ever made is don't be afraid to take risk, and don't try and do it on your own. Work with others, communicate, share. It's okay being protective of your intellect, your knowledge. That's fine. Don't give that away. Don't give ideas to people for nothing. And again, I've done that because you're not going to get any better of it. What you need to do is make work and showcase it. Every piece of work I've ever got that's been paid or commissioned has been through social media. It's been through me experimenting, showcasing my experiments, showing what I've done. It has not been through ringing up companies. It's not been through advertising or spending any money on Facebook or anything like that. Let your work speak for itself and do what you can with what you've got. Anyway, that's Storytime with Stephen and the freelance journey video over with. If you remember to if you like this video, give it a like. Leave any comments or suggestions on what you'd like to see, or your personal journey or experiences entering the freelance work world, or if you're even considering it. And I will see you again very soon. Goodbye.